Welcome to Health Tech Heroes, where we talk to innovators who are rewriting the DNA of healthcare. Today's guest is Jason Padgett, a strategist helping mission driven organizations integrate AI without losing their human touch. As a senior partner at Phoenix Solutions Group and chief AI officer at Phoenix Paramedic Solutions, Jason works closely with small to mid sized businesses, nonprofits, and public health teams to bring AI into their real world ethically and effectively. With a background in behavioral health and change management, Jason brings a grounded, people first lens to emerging tech. Through custom GPT builds, cross sector workshops, and his podcast AGI Advance, Grow, and Innovate with AI, he helps teams make AI useful without the hype. He also deeply involved in Indiana's AI ecosystem, including Indiana AI Innovation Network, where he champions practical, inclusive approaches to AI adoption. Welcome to Health Tech Heroes, Jason.
Thank you very much. What an honor to be here.
I'm so pleased you're here. And just reading your introduction, it was not in vernacular 2 years ago. The language has changed a lot. So let's see how the tech is changing our world overall.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's getting exciting because it's starting to happen outside of enterprise. I think enterprise has kind of been exploring this for the last couple of years, but I've been waiting for that dam to break to where outside of enterprise, whether it's in healthcare or in other sectors, we're actually starting to explore how these tools can amplify people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was involved in NLP and ML about 10 years ago. And that was, as you said, it was totally within the boundaries of an enterprise. It was not for public, but now that we are seeing it's pretty remarkable. Saying that we are a Health Tech Heroes podcast, that means we have to explore your origin story. What sparked your transition from healthcare services to becoming an AI strategy expert?
Oof, I'll see how fast I can go through that. So I'm a person in long-term recovery from alcohol use disorder. So I actually fell into healthcare probably 10 years ago when the opioid money first hit Indiana. So that's where I am. I'm in the Midwest of the United States. And, having been a person in long-term recovery who didn't grow up real religious, the 12-step movement, though I know it saved millions of lives, never really resonated with me and was always difficult for me. So around the early 1990s, a whole new movement happened up the East Coast called Multiple Pathways to Recovery that encouraged the fact that there's many pathways to long-term recovery from mental health and substance use issues, and that they're all a cause for celebration. And we should more embrace people and meet them where they are and say, look, I understand because I've been there, but like, here are all the choices. Which one would you like to explore first? That was what first brought me into healthcare. Prior to that, I was in the fine dining restaurant industry for most of my life. And then I got kind of fell down the marketing rabbit hole within healthcare and really kind of excelled at that. Went into a nonprofit job as a development director where it was just a one person development director doing fundraising and marketing. And that was in November of 2022 when ChatGPT first launched. And I kind of had my ChatGPT, I skeptically got on it to see what it was all about. And I had my ChatGPT moment like right then and there because so many people that we work with in behavioral health got a late start in life or didn't build the skills that they really had the abilities to build. And I was looking at this tool that could amplify your strengths and offset your weaknesses. And I was like, wow, this is I have to explore this further. And I just fell in love with the entirety of what AI. I would say I'm more on the MMLM side and LLM side. I don't have any kind of a computer science background, so machine learning and diving that deep, software engineering is not my forte.
That's awesome. At least 2 or 3 times you did say I fell into the healthcare, then I fell into this opportunity, I fell into this. Can you define that? You're almost like an adventurer in this world of healthcare and in the world of the changes.
I would be happy to. So I came back to Indiana. I left Indiana in like 1992 because I wanted to do my own thing, and I kind of traveled the coast and commercial fished and worked in the restaurant industry. I came back here in 2006 to sober up because I wasn't healthy from drinking so much. and spent 8 years in the 12-step fellowships, kicking and screaming the whole time about the fact that some of it didn't really align with my belief system. Spent 3 years back out and having a horrible time. Somehow saved my marriage. My darling wife stayed with me. Ended up at a recovery residence in Lafayette, Indiana, which is right across from Purdue University. And the executive director there said, there's this new thing called recovery coaching, where we send you to a 1 week training and you learn how to become a resource broker for individuals seeking recovery. That again is that multiple pathway to recovery thing. I think you're going to be awesome at it, because I was trying to launch some Buddhist based recovery meetings in the Midwest, which went over not all that well back in the this is not a hub of Buddhism, right? And so I went through that training, and then I quickly was one of the first recovery coaches in Lafayette. Some grant dollars came in, and they wanted to send out, the first grant was to send out an EMT with one of these recovery coaches to go knock on the doors of overdose survivals and see if we could help them leverage recovery resources. We started off, I was kind of directing that program. We were going to have some recovery coaches that were employed by the CMS agency, and then the rest of them employed by the recovery residents. They would be more like long-term coaches. We quickly found out that any healthcare entity wanted to work with the recovery coaches that were by employment going to have to be HIPAA compliant, whereas the nonprofit world sometimes doesn't even know what HIPAA stands for, right? So we quickly moved it all into the CMS agency with this very progressive young CEO, Nathaniel Metz, who is the CEO of Phoenix Paramedic Solutions, and then the grant dollars started coming. We were successful. We moved into a partnership with a community behavioral health center that we now have a crisis receiving center that operates 24 hours a day, and we just found that this pairing of paramedics and recovery people was awesome. And so that was my first fall in. My second fall in was that Nathaniel is really good at seeing that you're good at something and saying, Tag, you're going to go do this, right? So I was kind of messing with our social media a couple of years into directing that program, and he's like, I want you to just focus on marketing and learn how to be a marketer. And I found that really a gave me some like, I love marketing work. I really do. I really, really enjoy marketing work. But it also kind of unveiled this damn it, I dropped out of college and look where I probably could be if I had a degree in me. And that was why I kind of went off as a development director for a little while, because I thought, well, if you're good enough as a development director and fundraiser, you can still make college graduate level money. And that was when ChatGPT came out. And so then when I came across AI, I came to two realizations. One, I've always been a big fan of the Marcus Buckingham type. You should play to your strengths and find someone else to partner with to offset your weaknesses, because you'll be more engaged in your work and more successful. So I found AI amplified those strengths and it offset those weaknesses. And two, I quickly realized within the first year that our business ecosystem in healthcare and everywhere else is going to be so disrupted in the next 5 years that if you truly embrace this technology, you might be able to get way ahead in life without formal degrees.
Thank you very much for that, Jason. I really appreciated your journey, and I was trying to connect so many dots that you brought up, but I'll try to connect some major dot that still stick in my mind. First of all, you did experience you were on the other side of healthcare where you needed help, and you received help, and you were a coach for people who are under recovery. So you worked with humans really, really closely. You were on business side very early in your life, and then you also jumped into technology eventually. So that brings me to the next question, where you have this term called human touch while leveraging AI, and it all makes sense when I connect all those dots. But I would love to hear it from you. What's that human touch when you're leveraging AI?
So the human in the loop element, the first time I heard someone say that, we're going to need humans in the loop for a while, because around 2023, early 2024, I think there was enough hype in the industry that you were starting to get like these doomers versus bloomers conversations. Are we going to have to go to universal basic income and cancer will be cured and we're all going to live to 200 in the next 5 years? Or, are we going to have to go knock on doors looking for Sarah Connor because the Terminator's coming? And like, obviously, none of that is where we're headed. It is going to offset some jobs. Ironically, probably in the software industry before anywhere else. The people who created the technology are probably going to be the ones who struggle. But in the healthcare industry, I think we're resource restrained already. And so I see so many opportunities for where technology could help the healthcare industry, starting with just the grassroots, like our recovery coaches and people who are in entry level jobs, giving them a custom GPT that they can actually interface with, either with natural language or even with voice. So if they're new and they want to know, hey, 6 counties over, is there a resource? Well, being able to simply interface with a chatbot that's pulling using RAG to pull out information and let them know what that contact is, that is great. The fact that they can access best practices and policies, I think that is amazing. I will tell you one thing that I kind of disagree with, which I know there are some chatbots that are being used to address behavioral health in resource deserts. I fear that the younger generation is going to anthropomorphize AI so much that we would be better off to find other places to leverage that AI as a savings in those areas and hire more human beings to do the human stuff. And that's where I think the human in the loop comes in. We still need our human connection. And I think the younger generations are going to have to be pushed that way a little bit. And healthcare is one of those industries where people are always going to want a doctor or a nurse, right? It just we can empower that doctor, that nurse with technology that makes them more efficient, more effective.
100% I see where you're coming from, not in entirety as an expert as you are, but I do see where we want to be very cautious on how we implement. If there is one advice you want to give people in healthcare who are integrating AI, what would be that key advice? What is the top thing?
Well, I think anybody who's starting to integrate AI, the first thing to do is figure out what problem you're trying to solve. Don't do AI just to do AI because your board or is leaning on you or the CEOs told you, hey, we need an AI plan. Like, figure out what kind of a problem you can solve. Make sure you have multiple stakeholders at the table who are going to be touch points in that, everyone from patients to maybe the nurses that are delivering, whatever clinicians delivering the care, to your CFO, and then figure out what success looks like, and then bring in someone who can help you decide what a safe and ethical way to deploy an AI system in that is. In healthcare, I mean, fintech is really, they're highly regulated, right? And they're diving headfirst into AI. But if something hallucinates in fintech, somebody loses a bunch of money. In healthcare, somebody could lose their life. So it's arguably even more important that we have clean data and that we have very structured ways that that data is leveraged, and we're not just relying on simply generative AI, which if it doesn't know the answer is going to make one up. I mean, that's not really it's not really a fault of the system. That's what the system's designed to do.
Yeah, the creativity does come from hallucination. If there is no hallucination, there is no creativity in the AI world. Yeah, so we need it. At the same time, there has to be a certain balance, and we have to draw that line very meticulously, carefully, and find out what problem you're solving, and make sure those problems don't bleed into the solutions of other problems. All right.
I would say also, like, let's solve problems for people that want problems solved. I've heard a lot of conversations in healthcare about like doctors don't want a bot telling them what to do. Well, why are you even picking on the highest educated people in healthcare, trying to force AI on them, right? When you take a look at like your average community mental health center and the imperfections in connecting clients to continuous appointments and continuous patient care and things like that, machine learning and AI could make that whole experience so much better for employees and clients. I just think we need to make sure that we're tactful about how we're approaching this as a useful tool, not as something that takes someone who's right 99.9% of the time and makes them right 99.97% of the time.
That's a critical point that you touched upon. I think tactfulness is very important. We don't have to present AI as artificial intelligence. I've been recently thinking is actually augmented intelligence, and also communicate quite clearly that you are at risk if you don't use it because others are using it. And it is just a tool. It's like a scalpel in your hand, just another tool that you have to use it. Without using it, you might be left behind. I think it is important for everybody to realize that. Not that you're forcing it, but you're educating, and it is helpful to arrive at the same decisions you have arrived, but a lot quicker. I can totally see people who have been educated for only 5 years pushing back against it, but we'll come back to the pushback and challenges a little bit later.
But that's a great analogy that you just used, you know. So there's obviously, I don't know when the scalpel was invented, but I'm sure that the cutting tools they were using prior to that were fairly thick and rigid and caused a lot more problems. So to say no, I like my Jack the Ripper age knife for surgery. I'm not going to use this brand new scalpel that's going to leave a nice clean cut and that's easy to stitch up and that has much less infections. Is failure to leverage the technology of the day.
Thank you very much for that. All right. And coming back to your current focus, you are working with Phoenix Solution Group. And what is Phoenix Solution Group does, and what is your unique proposition?
So, Phoenix Solutions Group is a consultant agency that is, we focus on two different things: healthcare in general, change management, and cultural competency within healthcare, you know, trying to help teams be more effective, whether that's in the nonprofit healthcare space or the for profit healthcare space, particularly community paramedicine. My partner, Nate, is that's kind of his background. And then we move into the AI integration space, in which case we're excited about healthcare and feel like healthcare is just an ocean of possibilities. I mean, when you talk about AI and healthcare, you really have to whittle down what are you talking about? I mean, are we talking about drug discovery? Are we talking about reading X-rays? Are we talking about large language models? So there's an ocean of things that can be done there. But also taking a look at where my focus is workforce development, either within healthcare or within this general area, and K through 12 and collegiate education. Like all of that needs to change. The second fear that I have for the United States of America is when it comes to technology, we are a consumer, not a creator nation. And that's got to change. You know, like crazy, like Italian brain rot stuff on TikTok is what's trending in AI in the United States. Meanwhile, in China, they just ran a half marathon with robots that they made that range from the bipeds that can do kung fu to little R2. Something's got to give there. We've got to move more towards those creators and less towards consumers.
DeepSeek is another great example of what just happened and cutting down the cost by tenfold for something that sophisticated and making it free too.
Which I knew they would do. If you tell them we're not going to give you that top of the line NVIDIA chips, an innovative nation like that, I mean, Huawei is just going to say, fine, we'll learn how to do it either with more less powerful chips, or we'll figure out how to build those chips ourselves. So I do think I don't want to get political, but I think we need to figure out how more to partner with China because they're a powerhouse and they're going to continue to be.
Yeah. And politically, China not being a superpower for last 200 years was kind of an anomaly for that region. They will come up with technology, the huge resourceful country. It is good to partner if possible. You are a human AI collaboration coach. Is that a title within your company? And how do you see yourself?
So I see myself as someone who, again, there's kind of this new breed of pseudo techie people, right? Who are kind of that middleman between your technologists and your lay people who aren't used to this technology. So, uh, a software engineer, if you were to say that a director of development at a homeless shelter wanted to use AI in order to completely tailor their CRM so that all their marketing was targeted, that they automated all of their social media, that they're generating video, that they were going through all their data analytics and figuring out which messages resonated, more donations and this and that, right? And you bring in a software engineer and the two of them try to talk to each other, they don't understand each other at all, right? So I see myself as the person in between the two of those who can understand the technology enough to articulate it to someone who doesn't really understand it, and who can understand what those people, what those boots on the ground people want to do in a technical enough way to translate to or to leverage. I mean, I tried with a software engineer to work through a platform that I wanted to design, and he had no idea what I was talking about. So I went home, dictated it, gave it to Claude, and said, spit this back out in language that a software engineer will understand. And then I emailed it to him, and he called me up and he's like, now I get it. Totally. That makes sense. Right. So someone who knows how to use the technology to bridge that gap is really where I see myself.
It looks like you know your tools. You didn't go to ChatGPT, you went to Claude. That's awesome. Yeah, it does. Claude has its value, and a lot of work I get done through Claude, and some technical work I get done through ChatGPT too.
Claude's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was ever gonna fall down the is this thing ever gonna have consciousness weird rabbit hole, like sometimes Claude comes up with some ideas that I'm like, wow, it's just mind blowing. And I have all the respect in the world for Dario Amodei and his team.
Yeah, and the language it uses is very convincing. It's hard to tell if it is human or if it is AI. Yeah, Claude is something else. As you said, it might be better than the Terminator language-wise. Coming back to Phoenix Solution Group or Phoenix Paramedic Group, whichever it is, can you walk us through a recent success story of implementing AI in a healthcare organization which had a direct impact, right, on patients, which is close to your heart? You say that, hey, if somebody says, Jason, how are you making a difference in the world? This is what I did.
Can I step just slightly outside of Phoenix to tell that story?
100%, yes.
So Lafayette, Indiana is right next to Purdue University. Purdue University, that's the Wabash Valley area. And there is an organization, a nonprofit called the Wabash Area Lifetime Learning Association. And they came to me and asked me to teach an everyday AI class, an 8 session class, twice a week for all these retirees who were like 60 to 75 years old. And I said, okay. A lot of them are retired Purdue professors, but more on like the English side of the house, English languages, language arts, not STEM stuff. And I was skeptical of how mostly these boomers would receive the discussion about this technology. And we just had a blast in this class. I brought in some different. I'll tell a second story because one of our recovery coaches actually used AI to write a digital book that is like anime character journey of mental health and brings in the 8 dimensions of health and all this, and then was able to publish it, market it, create a video. He texted me like, what's a good video image generator? And I sent him a few others, and like an hour later he sends me this video that is like a beautiful video that shows his book. I mean, this is a guy who spent multiple years in prison. He's turned his life completely around, right? But he has a high school education, literacy level at probably ninth grade at best. And now he's published a really creative piece of work with all kinds of art in it and everything, 100% AI leveraged. Okay,
just thinking about the whole situation of combining anime, storytelling, video editing, and everything, making it so accessible that your creativity becomes the limitation. But somebody with that level of creativity now actually can implement it and communicate that vision is just beautiful. I think at some point, because we don't have to do this technical work anymore, right? Editing and all that stuff, our creativity is going to go to a next level in few years where humans have never reached, like intellectually. There might have been a random person like Da Vinci at some point reach that level to a level where it's not normal thing. Aristotle was probably at that level. I think the median might raise up to that level. And I'm fascinated to see where it's going to go because we don't have to do all this almost technical work anymore so that our minds can go on an overdrive. Yes, I couldn't agree more. And the people who do understand that technical work can get a little bit better stuff out of it. So, I mean, you take an artist and give them an image generator, they will make a way better image than I can make because they know how to talk to it. Absolutely, 100%. Somebody who's really an expert in that field takes the same AI, it's different level. Yes. Absolutely. The flip side of AI, what are the challenges and what pushback have you faced? And some surprising pushback that you didn't expect. Let's start with one of my biggest concerns. There was a gentleman who wrote a book about healthcare and AI that talks about it was a doctor, an MD that worked with the Da Vinci model, which was ChatGPT before it was GPT, and had early access to it. And I thought he brought up a great point in that book, which was if the average general practitioner spends 7 minutes with a patient, and 4 minutes of that is currently note taking, if we can actually get, and we do have the technology now that we can take that note taking off his hands, we have a note taker taking the notes, then are your big healthcare companies going to say, okay, now you get to spend those 7 minutes as a human being with your patient? Or are they going to say, great, now you need to see 2 patients every 7 minutes? I think we need to avoid that in healthcare. Let's not just become more productive. Let's become more human. That's one of my concerns. Now, when you're talking about like PDUM type concern, I do have concerns with AI. I mean, I think that it's moving so fast that
may come a point in time where trying to, I'm sure you're familiar with Move 37 from the AlphaGo game with Lisa Dahl. When Google's AlphaGo beat Lisa Dahl 26 at the game of Go, and it
Yes.
made a move that everybody was like,
It's
it
a wrong
lost.
move. It's like, yeah, nobody,
Yes,
no
and
expert
there
is going to
was.
make this move. And turns out,
So that's what concerns me is that while we may be trying to figure out how to do this and deploy all this technology as safely as possible, the technology thinks about things different ways than we do. So I hope that we don't leave something out of the loop, because if we ever do really reach, artificial super intelligence, then attempting to control that is going to be kind of the tail trying to wag the dog.
very true. And I see the risk of that. I think that's where my thought process also probably evolved with that Go game, that if AI reach their level, that allows us the freedom of reaching a certain other level, because now we are not within the boundaries of thought. It was a book, Nexus by Noah Yuval Hariri. He goes into deep into this Go game, the consequence of it, why it is a pivotal move in history of humankind.
Are you aware that they went on to train Alpha Zero, which they didn't use any human expert training for? They just gave the game the rules, and it was far better than any of the ones that they trained based on human input, which to me, again, implications of that are scary.
Yeah, it's like the Ultron and the Vision, but they actually gathered the rules of human engagement. And the conversation we had back and forth on LinkedIn, I thought that was pretty interesting, that you had two AIs talk to each other, right?
I would say, again, that's where I really like Dario Amodei. His last white paper that he put out was on interpretability, and I think some of the things that he brings up are things that we really need to be looking heavily into. I mean, if you can't fully explain how general GPTs operate, then it's really hard to figure out how to control them. But then again, I understand the arms race with AI, and so we're kind of between a rock and a hard place when it comes to safety.
Yep. We don't know where it's going to go. Let me step back a little bit. The author's name, what was the author's name? I could not catch it.
Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic.
Okay. And the counter thought, I think he is a visionary. You will know Hariri. That's a great book. You got to, yeah, absolutely one of the must reads on this topic.
I think when you can find people who write about this who aren't trying to sell a product, you have some really good information to try to start making some decisions around, right? I love Sam Altman, but I think Sam's there to raise funding for the next round to take ChatGPT to the next.
Fair enough. Yep. To listen to them on what it can do. And we have to go to people who are not trying to raise money to understand what it should not do. This is like double clicking into AI, not necessarily AI technology itself, but what in AI technology do you believe will revolutionize healthcare delivery in the next 3 to 5 years? What is that specific AI aspect of it is going to revolutionize healthcare? I'm sure there are more than one, but what comes to your mind, Jason?
Drug discovery. The amount of time it could take off of the drug discovery process, and the different ways that AI can weigh, maybe we're using Prozac for something, and it actually has capabilities of curing something completely different than depression that we would never test to see because we can't run a billion tests in 15 minutes. Now we can. Like, I think drug discovery is going to revolutionize medicine, probably bring down drug prices and cure a lot of ailments.
I think that's a really important aspect. I gave a speech about 6 months ago on exactly this. It takes about $1.5 billion to $2.5 billion and 15 years to develop a drug. There's a generation of kids, like, it's almost half a generation gone by the time we know that it might work for it to actually come to the market. And if we can, yeah, that's a really good, you nailed it. That's where it's going to happen. I agree with that wholeheartedly. This is a question that you sort of alluded to. I would like to double click on this a little bit, if possible. The relationship between healthcare professionals and evolving AI technology in 5 years. Not now. I understand the skepticism now, but in 5 years.
Well, the healthcare industry is notoriously slow at adopting anything, but I think the healthcare, to me, it will all depend on how we deploy it below enterprise level. I think you have to bring people to their chat GPT moment, right? Everybody has a different use case where all of a sudden AI makes something that they have to do on a regular basis that is either super tedious or super difficult, way way better, and they're like, wow. And then they become curious. So if we can get people more curious about AI within I'm going to say within healthcare systems that are where we're not just talking about top down. Where we're not. IU Health is a huge healthcare system here, right? They have a couple H100s. They have a chief AI officer with software engineering degrees. Like they're going to use AI to save money, but whether or not we actually integrate AI into the culture of healthcare is going to depend on whether or not we actually take the time to show boots on the ground healthcare employees how much this can better their lives. And I'm not real sure if that'll happen or not in the next 5 years. It probably will in the next decade.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, but if it doesn't happen, some of the people are risking, or some of the agencies or some of the enterprises are risking getting displaced. Do you think that's possible?
I don't disagree.
Okay.
Disruption is going to be huge in every industry. The fact that you'll be able to start healthcare agencies at much lower costs, but then access to data is going to become a huge thing as well. You have to have the right data to train a proprietary model in healthcare. You can't just train it off of open internet stuff and a few scientific papers.
Yeah, the RAGs concept, that's where that comes in, right? What is the advice you'd give to people who are getting into their AI journey, especially when they are trying to apply AI to the organization?
Well, I would say to students, like there are a lot of students not in healthcare that I would say you really need to explore whether or not you go to a community college and get an AI project management 2 year certification, or probably make you more money than a lot of 4 year degrees will going forward. But for people in the healthcare space, we're always going to need the certifications and the degrees that we get. I would encourage kids to look for either a minor that they can take in AI, or if there are universities that are offering like AI, there is a university in Texas that offers an MD alongside AI degree. Like whether you're in law or healthcare, if you can pair AI with it, you're going to be really well off going forward. If you're an organization exploring this, I would say, take the time to figure out what a project looks like and what problem you're trying to solve and what success would look like, so that you don't end up with in 2023, of all the enterprises that launched billions of dollars worth of AI projects, I think 15% of them were successful. That wasn't because the technology didn't work. It was because they just threw spaghetti against the wall and try to see what was going to stick. And you could throw away a lot of money and hurt the environment and a lot of resources and the amount of compute that you have to use if you're just willy nilly trying to do this stuff because it's the thing to do nowadays. Do it pragmatically and do it in a way that's going to be effective. That's
Doing it pragmatically is a critical aspect. Thank you very much for bringing that to the forefront. The way I've been thinking about this is don't focus on the product, focus on the pain point. I think that is where the pragmatism comes in, right? You develop a product to address the pain point rather than trying to find a pain point for your product, like force fitting a pain point to your product. That helps a lot. So, as your final question, you will get 90 seconds. It can be more, 3 to 4 minutes if you want. What is that one thing that is in forefront of your mind that we did not discuss? Or it could be a pitch for any of the activities you are involved in. So, the time is yours, Jason.
Well, as much as I'd love to pitch what we're doing, I think the thing I feel most strongly about right now is in K through 12 education, we need to rethink education. Rather than trying to figure out how to keep kids from cheating on their homework using these models, we need to realize that 5 years from today, jobs will exist that will be as foreign to you and I right now as podcasting would have been to Ben Franklin. And we need to build some safe sandboxes and give these kids access to these tools and let them figure out let the creators build with creator stuff, almost like Plato's Republic. Let kids early on in life identify what their interests are, and then let the STEM kids have the tools to do drug discovery type projects together. Let them show us what these tools can do. Redefine education. You could probably do that in half of the class time that you currently do, and then take that other half and get out in the world and get them playing with each other and build those human skills that we're going to need in order to have a future that is both productive and finds us interacting with each other and not wanting, Elon Musk to build us an AI wife. Amazing. My pet peeve about the school system is AI should have been in curriculum last year, at least latest last year.
if not this year. When my 13-year-old comes home and says, "Oh, my teacher thinks AI is not good," I say, like, teachers are not always right, unfortunately. And this is one time that I have to disagree.
I couldn't agree more. And there was a recent executive order. So apparently, at the executive level, they have put some committees together that have like 90 to 120 days to figure out what that's going to look like nationally. I hope that I am a big David Sachs fan. So the AIs are of the federal government. David Sachs, I think he's a very pragmatic guy, and I think that he will probably do wonders to move us towards a fruitful technology future.
Let's keep our fingers crossed. And again, I think I just saw something that may not be regulated too much, but I hope there is certain amount of oversight, not like fully unregulated AI implementation.
I think one of the things they're pushing for is federal regulation and not state regulation. I have mixed feelings about that. That actually, if you don't allow states, that is actually better for Facebook and Meta and Google than it is for any startup. Because what it does is it allows the enterprise people to just say, okay, here's the rules we have to follow, so go and go, and right? Whereas if you have state by state regulation, then you may have people who start up an industry inside of a state because the regulation supports what they're trying to do. And it's also not really very American to have the federal government telling states what to do. So I'm not sure we're going down the right rabbit hole with that, but I do understand that the thought behind it is that if the regulation is easy to understand and navigate, it will be best for all. I'm just not sure that's always how it works out.
Yeah, I mean, like everything else, everything new, we just don't know. And there has to be a certain amount of experimentation and mistakes. And hopefully the correction is not too late.
Yeah.
And
Amen.
we will make mistakes and we will correct it, or at least try to correct it. We'll go that route. We'll figure it out. But for now, Jason, it was such a pleasure. I feel that I grew extra graceful today just talking to you. That's awesome. And I really appreciate you coming on my podcast today.
It was a great conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.